Sir Alexander Fleming, FRSE, FRS, FRCS, Eng, was a Scottish biologist, pharmacologist and botanist. He wrote many articles on bacteriology, immunology, and chemotherapy. His best-known discoveries are the enzyme lysozyme in 1923 and the antibiotic substance penicillin from the mould Penicillium notatum in 1928, for which he shared the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1945 with Howard Florey and Ernst Boris. Biography, early life and education. Fleming was born on August 6, 1881 at Lochfield Farm near Darvel, in Ayrshire, Scotland. He was the third of the four children of farmer Hugh Fleming from his second marriage to Grace Sterling Morton, the daughter of a neighbouring farmer. Hugh Fleming had 4 surviving children from his first marriage. He was 59 at the time of his second marriage, and died when Alexander was 7. Fleming went to Loudoun Moor School and Darvel School, and earned a 2-year scholarship to Kilmarnock Academy before moving to London, where he attended the Royal Polytechnic Institution. After working in a shipping office for 4 years, the 20-year-old Fleming inherited some money from an uncle, John Fleming. His elder brother, Tom, was already a physician and suggested to his younger sibling that he should follow the same career, and so in 1903, the younger Alexander enrolled at St Mary's Hospital Medical School in Paddington. He qualified with an MBBS degree from the school with distinction in 1906. Fleming had been a private in the London Scottish Regiment of the Volunteer Force since 1900, and had been a member of the Rifle Club at the medical school. The captain of the club, wishing to retain Fleming in the team, suggested that he join the research department at St Mary's, where he became assistant bacteriologist to Sir Armroth Wright, a pioneer in vaccine therapy and immunology. In 1908, he gained a BSc degree with gold medal in bacteriology, and became a lecturer at St Mary's until 1914. On December 23, 1915, Fleming married a trained nurse, Sarah Marion McElroy of Killala, County Mayo, Ireland. Fleming served throughout World War I as a captain in the Royal Army Medical Corps, and was mentioned in dispatches. He and many of his colleagues worked in battlefield hospitals at the Western Front in France. In 1918 he returned to St Mary's Hospital, where he was elected Professor of Bacteriology of the University of London in 1928. Research, work before penicillin. Following World War I, Fleming actively searched for antibacterial agents, having witnessed the death of many soldiers from sepsis resulting from infected wounds. Antiseptics killed the patient's immunological defenses more effectively than they killed the invading bacteria. In an article he submitted for the medical journal The Lancet during World War I, Fleming described an ingenious experiment, which he was able to conduct as a result of his own glass-blowing skills, in which he explained why antiseptics were killing more soldiers than infection itself. During World War I, antiseptics worked well on the surface, but deep wounds tended to shelter anaerobic bacteria from the antiseptic agent, and antiseptics seemed to remove beneficial agents produced that protected the patients in these cases at least as well as they removed bacteria, and did nothing to remove the bacteria that were out of reach. Sir Armroth Wright strongly supported Fleming's findings, but despite this, most army physicians over the course of the war continued to use antiseptics even in cases where this worsened the condition of the patients. Accidental discovery. When I woke up just after dawn on September 28, 1928, I certainly didn't plan to revolutionize all medicine by discovering the world's first antibiotic, or bacteria killer, Fleming would later say, but I suppose that was exactly what I did. By 1927, Fleming was investigating the properties of Staphylococcus. He was already well known from his earlier work, and had developed a reputation as a brilliant researcher, but his laboratory was often untidy. On September 3, 1928, Fleming returned to his laboratory having spent August on holiday with his family. Before leaving, he had stacked all his cultures of Staphylococcus on a bench in a corner of his laboratory. On returning, Fleming noticed that one culture was contaminated with a fungus, and that the colonies of Staphylococcus immediately surrounding the fungus had been destroyed, whereas other Staphylococcus colonies farther away were normal, famously remarking "That's funny." Fleming showed the contaminated culture to his former assistant Merlin Price, who reminded him, "That's how you discovered lysozyme." Fleming grew the mold in a pure culture and found that it produced a substance that killed a number of disease-causing bacteria. He identified the mold as being from the Penicillium genus, and, after some months of calling it mold juice, named the substance it released penicillin on March 7, 1929. The laboratory in which Fleming discovered and tested penicillin is preserved as the Alexander Fleming Laboratory Museum in St. Mary's Hospital, Paddington. He investigated its positive antibacterial effect on many organisms, and noticed that it affected bacteria such as Staphylococcus and many other gram-positive pathogens that cause scarlet fever, pneumonia, meningitis and diphtheria, but not typhoid fever or paratyphoid fever, which are caused by gram-negative bacteria, for which he was seeking a cure at the time. It also affected Neisseria gonorrhoeae, which causes gonorrhea although this bacterium is gram-negative. Fleming published his discovery in 1929, in the British Journal of Experimental Pathology, but little attention was paid to his article. Fleming continued his investigations, but found that cultivating Penicillium was quite difficult, and that after having grown the mold, it was even more difficult to isolate the antibiotic agent. Fleming's impression was that because of the problem of producing it in quantity, and because its action appeared to be rather slow, penicillin would not be important in treating infection. Fleming also became convinced that penicillin would not last long enough in the human body to kill bacteria effectively. Many clinical tests were inconclusive, probably because it had been used as a surface antiseptic. In the 1930s, Fleming unregistered trademark S trials occasionally showed more promise, and he continued, until 1940, to try to interest a chemist skilled enough to further refine usable penicillin. Fleming finally abandoned penicillin, and not long after he did, Howard Florey and Ernst Boris Chain at the Radcliffe Infirmary in Oxford took up researching and mass-producing it, with funds from the US and British governments. They started mass production after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. By D-Day in 1944, enough penicillin had been produced to treat all the wounded in the Allied forces. Purification and stabilization. In Oxford, Ernst Boris Chain and Edward Abraham discovered how to isolate and concentrate penicillin. Abraham was the first to propose the correct structure of penicillin. Shortly after the team published its first results in 1940, Fleming telephoned Howard Florey, Chain's head of department, to say that he would be visiting within the next few days. When Chain heard that he was coming, he remarked, "Good God! I thought he was dead." Norman Hetley suggested transferring the active ingredient of penicillin back into water by changing its acidity. This produced enough of the drug to begin testing on animals. There were many more people involved in the Oxford team, and at one point the entire Dunn School was involved in its production. After the team had developed a method of purifying penicillin to an effective first stable form in 1940, several clinical trials ensued, and their amazing success inspired the team to develop methods for mass production and mass distribution in 1945. Fleming was modest about his part in the development of penicillin, describing his fame as the Fleming myth, and he praised Florey and Chain for transforming the laboratory curiosity into a practical drug. Fleming was the first to discover the properties of the active substance, giving him the privilege of naming it penicillin. He also kept, grew, and distributed the original mold for 12 years, and continued until 1940 to try to get help from any chemist who had enough skill to make penicillin. But Sir Henry Harris said in 1998, "Without Fleming, no Chain. Without Chain, no Florey. Without Florey, no Hetley. Without Hetley, no penicillin." Antibiotics. Fleming's accidental discovery and isolation of penicillin in September 1928 marks the start of modern antibiotics. Before that, several scientists had published or pointed out that mold or Penicillium sp were able to inhibit bacterial growth, and even to cure bacterial infections in animals. Ernest Dutchson in 1897 in his thesis Contribution to the Study of Vital Competition in Microorganisms, Antagonism between Molds and Microbes, or also Clodomiro Picado-Twite, whose work at Institut Pasteur in 1923 on the inhibiting action of fungi of the penicillin sp genre in the growth of Staphylococcus drew little interest from the direction of the institute at the time. Fleming was the first to push these studies further by isolating the penicillin, and by being motivated enough to promote his discovery at a larger scale. Fleming also discovered very early that bacteria developed antibiotic resistance whenever too little penicillin was used or when it was used for too short a period. Armroth Wright had predicted antibiotic resistance even before it was noticed during experiments. Fleming cautioned about the use of penicillin in his many speeches around the world. He cautioned not to use penicillin unless there was a properly diagnosed reason for it to be used, and that if it were used, never to use too little, or for too short a period, since these are the circumstances under which bacterial resistance to antibiotics develops. Myths: the popular story of Winston Churchill's father paying for Fleming's education after Fleming's father saved young Winston from death is false. According to the biography, Penicillin Man, Alexander Fleming and the Antibiotic Revolution by Kevin Brown, Alexander Fleming, in a letter to his friend and colleague André Gracia, described this as a wondrous fable. Nor did he save Winston Churchill himself during World War II. Churchill was saved by Lord Moran, using sulfonamides, since he had no experience with penicillin, when Churchill fell ill in Carthage and Tunisia in 1943. The Daily Telegraph and the Morning Post on December 21, 1943 wrote that he had been saved by penicillin. He was saved by the new sulfonamide drug, sulfapyridine, known at the time under the research code M&B 693, discovered and produced by May and Baker Limited, Dagenham, Essex, a subsidiary of the French group René Poulenc. In a subsequent radio broadcast, Churchill referred to the new drug as this admirable M&B. It is highly probable that the correct information about the sulfonamide did not reach the newspapers because, since the original sulfonamide antibacterial, Prontosil, had been a discovery by the German laboratory Bayer, and as Britain was at war with Germany at the time, it was thought better to raise British morale by associating Churchill's cure with a British discovery, penicillin. Personal life: Fleming's first wife, Sarah, died in 1949. Their only child, Robert Fleming, became a general medical practitioner. After Sarah's death, Fleming married Dr. Amelia Koutsuri-Vourikos, a Greek colleague at St. Mary's, on April 9, 1953. She died in 1986. Death: on March 11, 1955, Fleming died at his home in London of a heart attack. He was buried in St. Paul's Cathedral. Honours, awards and achievements. His discovery of penicillin had changed the world of modern medicine by introducing the age of useful antibiotics. Penicillin has saved, and is still saving, millions of people around the world. The laboratory at St. Mary's Hospital where Fleming discovered penicillin is home to the Fleming Museum, a popular London attraction. His alma mater, St. Mary's Hospital Medical School, merged with Imperial College London in 1988. The Sir Alexander Fleming Building on the South Kensington campus was opened in 1998 and is now one of the main preclinical teaching sites of the Imperial College School of Medicine. His other alma mater, the Royal Polytechnic Institution, has named one of its student halls of residence Alexander Fleming House, which is near to Old Street. Fleming, Florey and Chain jointly received the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1945. According to the rules of the Nobel Committee, a maximum of 3 people may share the prize. Fleming's Nobel Prize medal was acquired by the National Museums of Scotland in 1989 and is on display after the museum reopened in 2011. Fleming was a member of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Fleming was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society of London. Fleming was awarded the Hunterian Professorship by the Royal College of Surgeons of England. Fleming was knighted, as a Knight Bachelor, by King George VI in 1944. He was made a Knight Grand Cross of the Order of Alfonso X the Wise in 1948. In 1999, Time magazine named Fleming one of the 100 most important people of the 20th century, stating, When 2000 was approaching, at least 3 large Swedish magazines ranked penicillin as the most important discovery of the millennium. In 2002, Fleming was named in the BBC's list of the 100 Greatest Britons following a nationwide vote. A statue of Alexander Fleming stands outside the main bullring in Madrid, Plaza de Toros de las Ventas. It was erected by subscription from grateful matadors, as penicillin greatly reduced the number of deaths in the bullring. Flemingovo na Mesta is a square named after Fleming in the university area of the Device community in Prague. A secondary school is named after him in Sofia, Bulgaria. In mid-2009, Fleming was commemorated on a new series of banknotes issued by the Clydesdale Bank. His image appears on the new issue of £5 notes. 91006 Fleming, an asteroid in the asteroid belt, is named after Fleming. See also, medicinal molds, media related to Alexander Fleming at Wikimedia Commons, bibliography, The Life of Sir Alexander Fleming, Jonathan Cape, 1959. Morroy, Andrew. Copyright Nobel Lectures, The Physiology or Medicine 1942–1962, Elsevier Publishing Company, Amsterdam, 1964, An Outline History of Medicine. London, Butterworths, 1985. Rhodes, Philip. The Cambridge Illustrated History of Medicine. Cambridge, England, Cambridge University Press, 1996. Porter, Roy, ed. Penicillin Man, Alexander Fleming and the Antibiotic Revolution, Stroud, Sutton, 2004. Brown, Kevin. Alexander Fleming, The Man and the Myth, Oxford University Press, Oxford, 1984. McFarlane, Gwyn, Fleming, Discoverer of Penicillin, Ludovici, Lawrence J., 1952, References. External links, Alexander Fleming Biography, Time, March 29, 1999, Bacteriologist Alexander Fleming, Some Places and Memories Related to Alexander Fleming,